Hey there, micro folks. This is Mr. Hooker, and this is video number 2 on Behind the Supply Curves. Let's go. So, looking at average cost, we got a few different ones, and it's all just take the cost divided by quantity, but we'll go through them all. So, average total cost, which is very useful, and if you ever work in a production environment, is often called cost per unit. Um, is total cost divided by quantity. Average fixed cost, which is completely useless. Probably don't use that ever again after this chapter, is fixed cost divided by quantity. Average variable cost, which is also known as your shutdown point. If your price ever goes below the minimum average variable cost, you need to shut down. That's your variable cost divided by quantity. So there they are. That's what they're for. That's how they're used in economics. There we go. So average cost for Selena's gourmet salsas, quantity 1 through 10, total cost 120 to 1308, ATC 120 to 130. So ATC is going to be a U-shaped curve. AFC, our average fixed cost, is going to be a downward sloping line. And then average variable cost is like a really shallow U. It's kind of if you've ever seen those decorative bowls people put on coffee tables that they put like balls and stuff in, yeah, that's what that looks like. Um, so that goes 12 to 120. So that's what those look like. So there's your average total cost. It doesn't look like the full U. So minimum some things about that. Let's tie these things in really quick because it's important. Average total cost and marginal cost are linked. Average total cost is equal to marginal cost at the minimum average total cost. If average total cost is declining, then basically it is greater than marginal cost. If the minimum, it's equal to average total cost. And if it is increasing, if it's going up, then marginal cost is greater than average total cost. That's the way those look. Increasing output has two effects on average total cost. There's a spreading effect and a diminishing returns effect. So the spreading effect, the larger the output, the more output over which fixed cost is spread, leading to lower average fixed cost. Uh, and then the diminishing returns effect, the larger the output, the more variable input required to produce additional units, which leads to higher average variable cost. So note that marginal cost slopes upward because of diminishing returns. AVC also slopes upward, but it's flatter than the marginal cost curve, also flatter than the ATC curve. Average fixed cost slopes downward because of the spreading effect, and the marginal cost curve intersects the average total cost curve from below, crossing it at its lowest point, so intersecting at its minimum. So there's, yeah, that's what all of that looks like. And they don't really have ABC as curved as it should be. Minimum average total cost. Your minimum cost outputs the quantity of output at which average total cost is the lowest. Um, the bottom of the U-shaped average total cost curve. Three general principles are always true about marginal cost and average total cost curve. At the minimum cost output, ATC is equal to marginal cost. Anything less than the minimum output, so anything to the left of that, marginal cost is less than average total cost, and ATC is falling. And to the right of that, anything greater than the minimum cost output, marginal cost is greater than ATC, and ATC is rising. So this is what I mentioned a couple of slides ago, just put in a few different words. So that's what it looks like. So you can see here, here's your minimum. Here, ATC is falling and marginal cost is below it. Here, ATC is rising, marginal cost is above it. There you go. So if marginal cost is below ATC, then ATC is falling. And if marginal cost is above ATC, then ATC is rising. So does the marginal cost curve always slope upward? And this is what I was talking about. They would say this later, almost at the end of the chapter, and mention what it really looks like. Marginal cost curves often slope downward as the output goes from zero to some low level, and then slope upward at higher levels of production. The initial downward slope occurs when employing more workers, allows them to specialize in various tasks. So the specialization leads to increasing returns, to the hiring of additional workers, and results in the marginal cost curve sloping downward. Once they exhaust the benefits of specialization, you get diminishing returns to labor setting in, and marginal cost curve slopes upwards. So typical marginal cost curves have the swoosh shape. Yet for most of this chapter, they have not done that. They're going to wait till the end of the chapter to tell you that. And now they're going to give you a typical marginal cost curve, and it's going to slope through both of those. All right, short run versus long run costs. All inputs are variable in the long run. So that means in the long run, fixed costs like factory size will also vary. Um, firm will choose its fixed cost in the long run based on the level of output it expects to produce. So where are you going to be? So low levels of output, low fixed cost yield lower average total cost, but at high levels, high fixed cost yields lower average total cost. So what you want to look at is the long run ATC, shows the relationship between output ATC when fixed cost has been chosen to minimize average total cost for each level. We assume that the firm's going to choose the cheapest plant size for their output level. So what you end up with is this long run average total cost curve in like the navy blue, and then these purple short run ATCs within it. So what you end up with is like an envelope curve with some short run ATCs inside of it, and then you have to find like where you are for the scale. Um, so if they choose that one that minimizes at 0.6, at point C, it's at point C. If it produces 3, it moves to point B in that. But at point B, you really would have been better off to be on ATC 3 rather than ATC 6. So because of where you are. So that's the thing. And also, if you're going to go up, if you're going to slide up the end and produce 9, you could be at Y on ATC 6. But if you're producing that for a period of time, you would be better to be on ATC 9 and produce it at point X. So, like, that's a thing. You got to know you got to know who you are and where you're going to produce. It is so important in life to know who you are, both personally and as a firm. Like, that's a thing. So, there's a key thing with this: increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. Increasing returns to scale happen if you are producing on the downward sloping portion of the ATC curve. Constant returns to scale occur if you are producing on an even portion of the ATC curve, and decreasing returns to scale happen if you are producing on the portion of the ATC curve that is upward sloping. So here we go. Increasing returns to scale, otherwise known as economies of scale, which we will talk about ad nauseum pretty much for the rest of the class, are happen when long run ATC declines as output increases. Decreasing returns to scale, which no one wants to be in, or diseconomies of scale when long run ATC increases as output increases, and constant returns to scale when long run ATC is constant as output increases. So as a firm, you don't mind economies of scale or constant returns to scale. Don't mind either one of those. You do not want decreasing returns to scale or diseconomies of scale. Just don't want that. And that's the end, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next chapter. Y'all take care.